Welcome back, Red Devil sports fans. We have a jam-packed episode for you today. Again, in the next segment, we're gonna be interviewing our athletic director, Mr. Quattrone, Coach Quattrone. And then for this segment, we're just gonna dive right into it because there's a lot to cover. The World Series is happening today, or has been happening for the past day or so. The Dodgers took Game 1 last night. Sammy, how you feeling about the World Series so far?
We're not, as Red Sox fans who still miss Mookie, we're not talking about Game 1. You guys can talk about Game 1. I'm not commenting on Mookie Betts.
Sammy, I specifically asked you because I knew that Mookie Betts had just a monster game last night, and I wanted to get your thoughts.
I'm glad he got more tacos for everybody. That's all I'm gonna say.
I did not watch the game. I was too busy coaching my youth football team. A big game this Saturday, so it was just really thinking about Pendle Wildcats this week. So that was on my mind last night. No time for the World Series.
Helping out your community, I love to see it. But I guess the biggest news from the World Series is that the Dodgers just absolutely rolled through the Rays in the first game. Even though the pitching was great for both sides, Glasnow came out and was, for the first couple innings at least for the Rays, was very, very good. Kershaw was also really good. He passed John Smoltz for career strikeouts in the playoffs, which is some big news. He was actually announcing the game last night, John Smoltz along with Joe Buck. But other than that, the other big news is that there was a stolen base and there will be free tacos for everybody from Taco Bell.
And I saw a lot of good memes where Cody Bellinger thinking about getting his free taco. It was pretty good. I mean, the one thing I do want to say.
Yeah,
Go ahead, Dom.
No, you're good. Go ahead.
All right, so I wanted to say something about Glasnow. I was very confused on why they let him go 112 pitches. I just didn't agree with that decision. I feel like they left him in far, far too long.
I think the idea behind it was to milk every ounce of him, get as much pitches out of him so that they can save arms for the rest of the series because they're definitely going to need him. But I for sure that the Rays were going to steal Game 1 with Kershaw on the bump, just because he's just been terrible in the playoffs. But he really showed up last night, and he seems like he's going to be okay.
I wanted to quick shout out Joe Buck, the man, the legend. Sunday he did Bucks Packers. Monday he did Bills Chiefs. Tuesday he did World Series Game 1. Tonight he's doing World Series Game 2. Well, tonight at the time we're taping this. Yeah. Thursday night, Giants Eagles. Friday night, World Series Game 3. Saturday night, World Series Game 4. And if needed, Sunday, World Series Game 5. Absurd.
That's not. He's covering a lot of ground.
Absolutely absurd.
Covering a lot of ground there, no doubt about it. I'm not the biggest Joe Buck fan, but I'm still going to tip my cap to Joe Buck for that one because that's nuts.
I was going to say that's a lot of games I won't watch.
I love Joe Buck. What's your guys' problem?
I despise Joe Buck.
Why? I don't get it.
He's kind of annoying, man. I don't know.
I'm a big Joe Buck fan.
That's your personal preference, but I guess we've milked every ounce of the MLB World Series that we have so far. So let's dive into the NFL. What happened this week? Sammy, how'd the Colts do?
The Colts were down 21-0. Very quickly and came back to 1 after I turned off the game. So I think the news to me is don't watch the game anymore. So
yeah, I wish I'm thinking about taking your advice, just because the Eagles played the Ravens this week and came up short in the end. They were I think they lost 30-28. They brought it back, but it was still just a pretty bad game. Dom, what are your thoughts?
Well, we ended up losing by 2 points?
2 points.
And I would say the Eagles were never really out of it, but it also felt like we were down 42-7 the entire game. And then
exactly how I felt. Yep.
The Ravens said, all right, we're bored. Let's just make it a little more interesting, and gave us a bunch of free points. That was the kind of game it felt like. Like we lost by 2 points and could have tied if it wasn't just for a stupid play call. However, it felt like we were losing by 35 points the entire game.
Yeah, it didn't matter how much we actually were losing by, because it just felt. I agree with you totally, Dom. It just felt like we were down by like 50 points the whole time. I got to listen to the third quarter and the fourth quarter on my way home from my baseball game, and I finally get back. Like they're coming back. They're coming back. They finally brought it back, and then I get on my couch. I turn on the game, and then that 2-point conversion happens, and I was upset. That's kind of how it went. And that's, you know what, that's how it went when I came home from my game last week against the Steelers too. So I think I'm just going to start listening to the games on the radio instead of watching them. I do love Merrill Reese. Merrill Reese is the man. But yeah.
In other football news, actually, I want a big shout out to Ryan Fitzpatrick. I feel for the guy. Just lost his starting job to Tua. And he's actually been playing lights out this season. Like, Dolphins don't have the world's greatest record, but he's been stellar this year, and he's been more Fitzmagic than Fitztragic. So I feel bad for the guy losing his starting job, especially because of how long he's been in the league. And he actually came out today and said, he's like, I felt like this was my team. This one hurt to lose this job more than any other one I've ever lost. So feel bad for the guy, but want to give him a shout out for that.
I want to make it known that Big Ten football is returning. For anyone who didn't know, the best conference in college football, the most entertaining. Mm-hmm. So I have been bored to death by the NFL this year, and I am really excited to get some Big Ten football coming back this week.
Dom, do you have a team that you like to follow in the Big Ten?
I mean, I root for Penn State, but I'm not a diehard tried and true blue Penn State fan. I just really love watching Big Ten football. So, but I don't have a team. I just enjoy watching college football, college athletes. So,
yeah, I watched a bunch of college football this past weekend. I watched Arkansas and Ole Miss. That was a decent game. I watched the Alabama game versus Georgia. That was good. What else did I watch? I think I watched Auburn lose to somebody. I can't remember who it was, but that was a sight to see. But yeah, college football, Big Ten coming back. That's big news. And other big news before we move on to our next segment, the cross country national championship is going to be coming to Dickinson in Carlisle this year in 2023. That's big news. Sammy, what do you think about that?
Well, that was actually, I remember talking to Justin about this too. This is the first one they've hosted, their first championship of any kind they hosted since 1998. So it's kind of a big moment. The thing is too, is Dickinson doesn't often host a lot of meets during the season. So it's a good opportunity actually for RDSN to actually get some footage of them doing something in the near future.
Won't be able to be there obviously, but looking forward to seeing that footage, getting some of that edited, putting some great content out there. Shout out to, I guess if it's going to be in 2023, I won't be there.
Yeah.
Never mind. I just thought of that.
That's okay. That's why I asked Sammy, but I wanted your input too. Hopefully I'll be able to, I won't be able to, actually, we're not going to be there either, Sammy.
We're closer.
You're closer than I am. I'm out of here. Very short.
That's kind of crazy. That just hit me like a brick wall. We're going to be graduating in like 2 years. That's nuts. I thought for sure we were going to be there, Sammy. I don't know. Maybe I'll come back for it because that's a pretty big deal.
We kind of have to.
Yeah, we'll do some alumni RDSN stuff. Just get involved. That's what we do.
Yeah. Before we move on, though, I do have two things to say. One, since Sam makes me proud when he admits he's wrong about the Eagles, I'll admit I was terribly wrong about Alabama. I was very wrong about Bama. I said Georgia was going to win, and I was wrong, and I'm going to own up to that. And the other thing is, just because we never talk about soccer, I just want to say the Champions League is starting, and it started, I believe, yesterday, and all the games this week have concluded. They're going to pick up again next week. So if you're interested in soccer, definitely check it out.
Who's your squad? Who's your squad, Sammy?
So I recently started watching soccer actually this year, and I support Tottenham. So they are not in the Champions League, but they're doing relatively well so far this season in the Premier League. So.
I do my best to follow. I was big into soccer like when I was a freshman in high school, like coming out of 8th grade, mainly because I was playing a bunch of FIFA. And I like to follow like the real time players and stuff. And then I actually got into soccer in high school, and I had a lot of fun with it. So during those times, I was a big Man United fan and Bayern Munich fan. I like those.
Can I just ask a question for either of you guys, if you know anything about soccer?
Yeah.
Why is there's so many teams in each league, But when you talk to Americans, it's typically you hear Man U, Man City, Liverpool, Chelsea. Like, why is it only those couple of teams that are typically?
Do you want me to answer? Or you, Sam?
Is it because they're good? Is it just because they're good?
So a lot of it is size of, the club, like the revenue they have, because when it comes to the money, there's certain players they can afford. And basically the more money you have, the better. And the other thing is in terms of, I believe Liverpool is the one that is owned by the same ownership group that the Red Sox are owned by. So that's another reason they're pretty big, especially in like this relative area that I'm in Massachusetts. And, those kind of clubs, the ones that bring a lot of revenue in or are able to market and get their teams on TV in America are going to be far more, I believe they're often on NBC Sports, are going to be much more popular in America.
Yeah, it comes down to just which teams have the most money to bring in those big time players. So like I know a lot of it is for Americans, at least they'll like latch on to one player and just kind of follow them wherever they go. For me, it was Lewandowski. I love Robert Lewandowski growing up, and he went from Borussia Dortmund to Bayern Munich. So like I kind of flipped to Bayern Munich. And I think it's just a different kind of vibe. I think just like it's a different sport. It's not big here in the United States because like I don't know of anybody that has like a favorite MLS team, I guess. So it's just kind of pick and choose who you want and whoever's good, I guess.
I mean, the only MLS fan I ever met was like a Galaxy fan, and that was a couple of years ago when they had actually notable players. But like for me, when I was picking Tottenham, I wanted to pick a team that wasn't necessarily the most popular, but also they had a documentary on Amazon that they were doing throughout the season to talk about teams. So like I got to learn pretty quickly about the players and all that kind of stuff. So it was pretty easy to get into them.
I'm going with Juventus. That's my squad. I'm Italian, so I will root for the Italian team, and I love Ronaldo. So
there it is.
Let's go Juventus, baby.
See, there you go. Forza. I think they say it's Forza.
Forza. Yeah, let's go. Sure.
Yeah,
we'll go with that.
Right before we finish, move on to our next segment. Shout out Doc Emmerich for retiring. One of my favorite broadcasters of all time. I'm not even a big hockey guy, but just love listening to him broadcast. He's retiring. So it's a shame to see him go.
Good stuff.
Shout out Doc.
Yeah, shout out Dom. And then we're gonna move right on into our next segment with our interview with Coach Quattrone.
Healthy, not boring. That's just the motto of Grazery, but it is also their promise to you. Visit Grazery today and indulge on fresh Mediterranean-inspired salads, sandwiches, and soups, among other great options on a menu that serves both breakfast and lunch. Eat in or take out. No reservation needed here. So hurry on down to 156 West High Street, just yards from the campus, and enjoy a fresh and feel healthy meal today.
Alrighty, welcome back, Red Devil sports fans, to our interview segment. Today we have Coach Quattrone with us, our athletic director for Dickinson College Athletics. Coach, today.
Well, thanks. Thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
No problem. Yeah, I'll kick us right off with a somewhat complicated question. How has the athletic director's role changed during the pandemic so far?
It's changed a lot. With normally in athletics, you've got control, right? You've got a reason to think you've got control of this or that, and you can find resources that will help you put things together. And things, although sometimes they don't look like they run smoothly, they tend to, because you've got answers. But with COVID, you don't. And that's the really frustrating part, is that it's day to day. And what looks good one day is not looking good the next day. And you really have to adjust on the fly, which is very, very frustrating for all of us who are trying to make the right decision. And certainly for you guys who compete, it's got to be incredibly frustrating. So it's really challenging. Patience has been tested, believe me.
I mean,
I'm going to say this. Oh, go ahead, Sammy.
I mean, if you had a comment on the same thing, you can go say it, because I had a question about the same topic. So I was just going to ask, just because you have to work a lot with, I assume, the coaches and just like the NCAA right now in general, about trying to make this correct decision, and with the conference also. So what are the conversations like? Because we're getting probably closer to a time where a decision's going to have to be made relatively soon.
Yeah, this time, Sam, is actually very similar to where we were in May of this past year, in that, you know, we have to make a decision on the spring semester. Are we going to have athletics? And the question now, you know, is back to the same situation. Are we going to have students back? You know, so institutionally, we're working very hard to try to figure that out, because obviously it's our desire to have students back, and best case scenario would be to bring everybody back and to have a form of competitive season for everybody. But there's too much unknown. We can't make that decision institutionally. We can't make that decision. And as a result, conference wise, we're unable to really make that decision. So we're in limbo. So it's been quite frustrating.
I was just going to say, hey, Coach, because you have to coordinate with, you know, all of the people like President Ensign and George Stroud and all of the other heads of the school before you can go forward with any athletic plans. Obviously, you can't have athletics with any students not there. So what has the communication been like with President Ensign, George Stroud, and some of the other head administrators at the college?
Yeah, I mean, they've been great. They're as competitive as I am. And that's pretty competitive. And they love sports like I love sports. I mean, you won't find individuals that are more committed to what we're doing. But more than that, they're very sensitive to the health and safety of the campus. So, you know, President Ensign had to make a hard decision last semester or this past semester, and she's going to have to make another decision coming up. So I don't envy her position. I know that she's got our best interests at heart, but it's a health and safety issue. And, you know, think about it, guys. If the decision, and I hope we're playing, but if a decision is the other way and it saves an individual's life, then it was the right decision. So as much as I want us back and as much as they want us back, they've got to listen to all of the individuals who are in the committees doing all the groundwork, listening to the CDC and health or state and federal information. So I'm hoping, I really am. I'm really bored at night. You know, I mean, think about it. I'm running at baseball games and softball games and football games and basketball. And that's what I love, right? I mean, you love to watch kids compete and give everything they have, you know, for their families and their programs. That just gets me juiced up, and not having that is the real challenge.
Yeah, Coach, I'm going to take you back to your coaching days for a second here. Hopefully it's a little bit of a happier note. So can you think of a story or like a moment when during your days that just screams Dickinson? Like what is that kind of feeling for you? Like what is a story or something that just is just Dickinson?
One of the things I'm most proud of, and we can say it today too, because our kids are the same way. Our kids, our athletes give everything that they have. And if it's a 60-minute game, then it's 60 minutes. If it's overtime, then they're in for that. And I remember we were out at Carnegie Mellon playing a really strong Carnegie Mellon team years ago. And we were down probably, it might've been like 42-14, something like that, with 10 minutes left in the game. And we came back and tied it, and we won the game. It was unbelievable. And at the end of the game, we're on the field jumping up and down, and Vince Glorioso, who was a backup safety, came over to me and he was hugging me and he headbutted me right in the head with his helmet on. And blood's pouring down my face. But it was awesome. It was awesome because the energy that we had, you know, I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, Dom, you guys know it. It's what you play for. You know, it's just the energy and the teamwork and the connection you have with your teammates. You don't get that anywhere else, you know, and fortunately I've had other stories that are like that, you know, where it's been that type of setting, you know, so that's just one memory that comes to mind with regard to the excitement and the enthusiasm of the accomplishment that we just had.
Absolutely. And just talking about kind of influence and all that kind of stuff, I wanted to ask you how, I mean, we know you played D-back in college, and you also worked at Dartmouth. I kind of want to know how that, being a defensive back and, working in your first job at Dartmouth influenced you as you came to Dickinson, and anything that you kind of took away and brought over here.
Well, the reason I'm at Dickinson, or came to Dickinson, was because of my Dartmouth experience. My roommate at Dartmouth was a guy by the name of Dave Bankson, who played under Ed Sweeney at Boston University. So when Ed Sweeney got the job at Dickinson, he called Dave Bankson and asked him to come and be his offensive coordinator. So then Bing called me and said, listen, we have another position open. You ought to apply for it. So that's how I got down here. So yeah, it was a great connection, and, just coaching and getting to know other individuals and other schemes was awesome. I mean, when I was at Dartmouth, I worked under Donnie Brown, who's the defensive coordinator at the University of Michigan right now. What a great experience. I mean, the guy was a genius, and then just a great coach. So yeah, just being able to continue to have those great experiences fueled me to come down here and work under Ed Sweeney.
For those of everybody listening who doesn't know, Coach Quattrone is one of the main reasons why I came to Dickinson, came down to see me at Bishop Shanahan when I was a senior in high school. And I could just tell after the first time, Coach, after the first time I talked to you, I was like, I'm pretty much sold. And you called me a couple times throughout the season. Other schools that were talking to me didn't do the same thing. And you just really cared for me. And I can tell that you care for you cared for everyone on the football team while I played for you. And I know, talking to alumni, they all say the same thing. And now everybody on campus, you have these personal relationships and everyone looks up to you. So, but I wanted to ask, when we used to come in for 6 a.m. lifts, of course, when we used to come into 6 a.m. lifts, you would already be drenched in sweat, and we would come in, groggy-eyed, yawning, and you had already gotten a workout in. Where does all that energy come from, and how do you maintain it, throughout the entire day? Because you would be like that at practice later on in the day too, at 6 o'clock.
I don't know. I really don't know where I got it, where I got the energy to do it. But I mean, it's a commitment, right? I mean, I'm asking you to work your tail off, and I need time to do it. So I don't have time during the day because administratively I'm doing a lot of things. So I just get up early to make sure that I get it in, and it's therapy for me. If I don't get it in, I'm a bad man. So yeah, it's something that I love to do, and I love to push the limits, just like I asked you to do.
Coach, we at Dickinson, we like to talk a lot about legacy, and I know, speaking from personal experience, you coached my dad at Dickinson football, and so what is that? What do you think that says about Dickinson? Is that because I meet almost a new legacy kid every year at Dickinson? What does that say to you about Dickinson?
Well, it speaks to the experience, and I mean, Dickinson has done a great job in preparing our students for life after Dickinson. And your dad is an example of that. He came in, I didn't have to coach Joe. I didn't have to coach your dad. I mean, he was a guy that got it. He understood what it took to be successful. I didn't have to worry about him not working hard. So he had a great experience. He made the most of his Dickinson experience. And for those that do, kids that are in the at the time of looking at colleges, sure, they push Dickinson to their kids because it was a great experience for them, but they made it. Your dad made it. He was a treat. He was a great person to work with. And that's why you're here, because you got this, you get the same genes, and you're going to make the most of your 4 years here.
Well, I appreciate that. Thank you very much, Coach.
You betcha.
Yeah. So, I mean, kind of tough to follow up that question, but I kind of wanted to ask about your transition to being the athletic director, because I know, just talking to people, a lot of people, when you got that job, even just talking to Sam and hearing about what his parents said, they were excited when you got that job. They felt it was a long time coming, and I just kind of want to ask what that transition into being athletic director was like.
I have to tell you, it was hard because, having coached for as long as I have, the relationships that you get that you have with kids. It's hard for me to get that as the athletic director. You know, you're not as connected with the student athletes. And so that was always hard. But I looked at it this way. Now my job is to work with our coaches and to make sure their experience is a good one, and to try to provide what they need to make your life a good one. So now I'm working with our coaches closer than I ever have been. It's also given me an opportunity to get to know more student athletes. I'm attending obviously more contests. I'm getting to see soccer play and cross country run and swimmers swim. Where with football, you know, it was, you know, although I was the associate AD, you know, I was calling recruits every night and I didn't really have the time to do all the things that I'm doing now. So the bottom line for me is, as I told you earlier, I love to see athletes compete. It just gets me excited. I love to see football players just grinding it out, and baseball players beating out a single and making a great diving play, and swimmers just pushing it hard and cross country run. So I get to see that. So, you know, where it was challenging for me first, I've kind of been able to find my energy with all of the other sports that are working. So it was challenging, but I think I can affect more people now than I would have been able to as an assistant coach. And that's important.
Coach, I feel pretty lucky because I actually have gotten to play for 2 generations of Quattrones. I got to play for you and I got recruited by you. And now I've been able to work with your son, Matt Quattrone, every day, who has, you know, pushed us to absolute limits like you talked about earlier, and, you know, knows the value of hard work and also has pride for Dickinson, even though he didn't go here. How cool has it been being able to work with him since he started last year?
Yeah, it's been the greatest thing ever. You know, because when I was coaching, Matt was playing, so I never really got the chance to see him play. So this has been fantastic. He's all my kids are fantastic. I love them to death, and they all have great things about him. And Matt is a coach. You know, Matt is an energy guy. He loves impacting kids. And he loves his association with Dickinson. I mean, he would work here as an intern for 20 years if we'd let him. You know, he just loves that. He loves that connection. He loves working out in the weight room. He loves, you know, connecting with the corners and the defense. And he loves working on Coach Fordyce's staff. It's a great staff, and they get along really well, and they work a lot of hours together. But it's been fantastic. I love to sneak over and just watch practice, you know, without him knowing, just to see him do his thing, because he's awesome.
He is.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, that's it for me. I don't know if Sammy has another question or not, or Dom, but I just wanted to say thanks for coming on. It was a truly great interview. I mean, I got a lot of insight there. Sammy, you got anything?
Yeah, I got one more question, and it has absolutely nothing to do with Dickinson. You're a Bills fan.
I am.
So with Tom Brady not in the AFC East, how high are your hopes?
Well, you know, the Bills are a good team, but they're not the kind of team that can overcome mistakes, right? They're not that good yet. They got to figure out how to get rid of that. I love them, and they're, I mean, if they don't shoot themselves in the foot, they'll be making some waves. Yeah.
Coach, I had one more question for you. I never really got to ask you this in all of our conversations and time spent together, but, you know, you're, like as Sammy just mentioned, you're from upstate New York and came down to Carlisle. What about Carlisle and what about Dickinson has kept you here for so long, and why do you love it so much?
You know what? I've said this a number of times to people, and when I came down here as a 25-year-old guy, a kid, in about 2 months, I realized that Dickinson is a very special place, because everything they do is for you. Everything they do is for the student. They do so much for the student to make the experience a good one, you know, and I was really impressed with that. And because I was like most young coaches when I came here, I wanted to do this for a couple of years, network, get Sweens behind me and move up and coach at a higher level. But I didn't want to leave the place because it was that special, and the relationships that I was able to form with coach with kids from 1985 on, still have today. Yeah. And we still have that, Dickinson still does so much to create a great environment for the students. And I just love to be part of it, and I couldn't see myself leaving it. So I'm a lucky man, believe me.
Well, we're lucky to have you, Coach. Thank you again for
Thanks.
coming on the show.
Yeah, well, I really appreciate it, guys. You do great work.
Thank you.
Thanks, Coach. Appreciate you.
All righty. Take care.
You too. Complex is something no coach or athlete wants to deal with, which is why every team aims to keep schemes and execution simple so success is easy to achieve. That's the game plan used by Grazery right here in Carlisle. Simple ingredients that are fresh, healthy, and above all, delicious. Healthy, not boring food that is not just good, but good for you. Made from only the healthiest and simple ingredients. So come in today and enjoy a great meal made simple at Grazery, located at 156 West High Street, Carlisle, Pennsylvania.
All right. Welcome back once again, Red Devil sports fans, for our last segment where we're going to go over our top 5 sleeper players. But before that, I just want to say another quick thanks to Coach Quattrone. That was a fantastic interview. Not a lot of interviews has got me as emotional as that one. So that was great. Talking about my pops, talking about the Dickinson legacy. That's what I live for. Roll Devs. All right, let's get into these lists. Sammy, give us your number 5.
All right. So just to clarify what the sleeper players list, it's more or less like a come out of nowhere player or someone who wasn't drafted or taken really late. So just for the clarification for our listeners. So my number 5 is JJ Barea. JJ Barea, when I really first started paying attention to the NBA, kind of was just really fun to watch for absolutely no reason at all. And with my first 2K, he was absolutely broken. Great time. So he's going to have to take number 5 on my list.
Good stuff.
I also wanted to give a quick shout out to Coach Q there. He's one of the reasons why I came to Dickinson, and I still talk to him all the time. He's been a huge influence and mentor in my life. So again, that was just a really awesome interview for me. And I do play for his son. Matt is now on our coaching staff, who's also a beast. So just wanted to shout out the whole Quattrone family.
Yeah. Really way to bring
had to do that. My number 5 is so my number 5, shout out to my former high school teammate, Doug Costin, undrafted free agent for the signed with the Jacksonville Jaguars, made the squad, is getting some playing time for them right now. Had him on my personal podcast, and I've been talking to him every now and again. Shout out to him. He's worked his butt off. So he is my number 5.
That's awesome. Getting a little personable. That's great. I'm going to go very, very, very recent, and I'm going to go with Travis Fulgham, beast receiver for the Eagles this year, coming off the practice squad out of Old Dominion University. Bounced
there it
around.
is, Sammy. There it is.
There it is, right there. It wouldn't be Glavin list if there wasn't a Philadelphia guy on this list. And there's one more that I won't spoil it, but there's one more on my list. So, but that's where it is. You can hear all about Travis Fulgham and how much we love him on my own podcast at Wolves of Broad Street. So there's my shameless plug for the episode. Sammy, give us your number 4.
My number 4 is Kevin Millar. He was
nice.
So a lot of people probably don't know him, even people who have played attention to baseball, but he was an undrafted guy for the Red Sox. Played first base. He kind of came out of nowhere a little bit and was the first baseman when they won the World Series in 2004. So he's a big part of that the first championship in a while. So
that's a great pick. I just want to comment on that real quick. I love the 4 days in October, 30 for 30. It's awesome. And Millar was probably one of my favorite people in that whole documentary. He was great. They had him mic'd up before being mic'd up was a thing. Mm-hmm. It was fantastic. He's awesome.
All right. Well, you guys are making me seem less and less of a sports guy because I didn't know either of Sammy's first 2 picks. So my number 5 was Doug Costa. My number 4 is Rudy Rudiker from the movie Rudy. Shout out to him. One of my favorite movies. And I don't know if you haven't seen Rudy, you haven't lived. So one of the biggest underdog stories ever. Shout out Rudy. That's
a great
4.
pick. That's a great pick. Out of the box, just like Dom likes to do it. That's great.
You know it. You know it.
Number 4 on my list is Kurt Warner. I don't think I really have to say anything more about it. I mean, he's a Hall of Famer, and I think he's got a ring, I believe. Yeah, he's got a Super Bowl ring, and he's taken major strides. So that's my number 4. Go ahead, Sammy.
All right. So my number 3 has someone that has been an honorable mention for me when I didn't get to talk about him. So Adam Vinatieri. It's tough when, to say like a kicker going undrafted because they usually don't go drafted anyways. But Adam Vinatieri, one of the most clutch players of all time, and just all around stud. Got to play for the Pats and the Colts. Won a couple chips. So
he was on my list for clutchest players.
Yeah,
he was on my list.
I think he was an honorable mention for me when I couldn't be here.
Yep.
Gotcha. So my number 3, Jeremy Lin. Come on, Linsanity, absolutely electric back in the day. So not much else to say. Jeremy Lin, number 3.
Linsanity, that's a good pick. Interestingly enough, Jeremy Lin was next on my list too. So being a Sixers fan, I didn't like the fact that he was so good for the Knicks, but it was so fun to watch like that whole time. So that's Jeremy Lin's on my list. Sammy.
Yeah, so my number 2 is the only player on my list who was actually drafted. He was taken with a 57th pick in my birth year of 1999 and is Manu Ginobili. He and Tim Duncan were an absolute blast to watch as I was growing up and starting to watch basketball. And Tony Parker as well. Just great guys to start kind of learn the game of basketball from and just watching. It was a great time.
So my number, what are we at? Number 2?
Yeah, 2.
Number 2. T.O. Terrell Owens out of Chattanooga, University of Tennessee, Chattanooga. So, lifetime Eagles fan.
There you go.
T.O. Shout out to him.
There you go.
Sit-ups in the driveway.
Yeah. Good stuff. I like that. Nice Birds player to round out the list. I like it, Tom. Number 2 on my list. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of this guy, but maybe Sammy has. But Ben Zobrist. He was a guy. He finished up high school, and this is just a great story. He finished up high school, and he was just kind of like, that's it for me. Like, I guess baseball. I'm done with baseball. And then he decided to go to an MLB scout like tryout or like a showcase or something. And he had $50, and he paid $50 to get into this thing. And he was like, I just wanted to do it to get one more day of baseball, like just a couple more hours of baseball left in me. And then he ended up being just this fantastic baseball player, got all the way up through the MLB and won a championship with Chicago and was a fantastic player for Chicago for like 5 years. So he was great. I love that story. It's one of my favorite baseball stories. And he's number 2 on my list.
I wasn't sure if we were doing honorable mentions this week. Are we? Yes, no?
I don't have one picked out, but I could think of something.
I don't either. But.
I was gonna say my honorable mention was gonna be T.O. So
T.O. Good stuff. Nice.
But if you guys don't
go ahead and give us your number 1 then.
All right.
No, I don't have one. No.
My number 1, and it is the jersey behind me, is Jeff Saturday. So this is I will always stand by this. Offensive linemen are some of the most underappreciated athletes in all of sports. Those guys live in the trenches. They're the reason why you get to root for your quarterback and your running back. And it's another reason why I'm a big Quentin Nelson fan for the Colts right now. But Jeff Saturday, he was told he was too small, couldn't play in the NFL, got cut from the Ravens and jumped back into the Colts the following season after working at a hardware store, I believe, during the 97 season or something like that. And he went out and became a stud for the Colts, helped them win a championship, and one of the most important parts of that Peyton Manning era in the Colts.
My number 1 is Mike Piazza.
Nice.
62nd round draft pick in the 88 draft, 1,390th player picked overall. Local kid from Norristown, PA, which is not far from where I grew up, and actually played in one of the surrounding little leagues in my area. So Mike Piazza, out of nowhere into the Hall of Fame from Norristown, PA. Even though I hate the Mets, shout out Mike Piazza.
Good stuff. And I just thought of an honorable mention. I don't know if I'm going to go with Jason Peters. He's staying on theme with Sammy's appreciation for O lineman. He was a tight end coming out of college, and they needed help on the O line, and he bulked up to a good 330 pounds and decided to play left tackle for the Philadelphia Eagles. I can't remember if he was drafted or not. I don't remember if he was undrafted or if he was drafted. I can't remember. I want to say he was undrafted, which is pretty on brand. But my number one is going to be Larry Boa, former Philly great. And then he ended up also coaching for the Phillies. And, I had to round out the list with another Philly guy at the top. I had one at the bottom and one at the top. So I just had to make that come full circle. And Larry Boa.
Fair enough. I mean,
this is slowly turning into the Sam Glavin Philly podcast. This is slowly turning.
I got you guys to keep me in check. That's why. I mean, I don't know how well it's working out, but I got you guys here to keep me in check, and it's all good.
We just criticize you when it comes back to bite you.
Yeah, I don't see how this can come back and bite me in the ass, so it's okay.
If Fulgham goes out and drops 4 passes next week, we will let you know.
I'm sure you guys will, and that's fine with me. It's totally fine with me.
That's it for me. You guys got anything else?
I'm good. Yeah, I'm good. Thank you guys so much again for listening to this episode. We had a great interview with Coach Quattrone. We had one of my favorite top 5 lists, and as always, we will see you guys next week. Roll Devs.